From the day I met Emma, my wife's best friend, something about her energy didn't sit right with me. She had this way of looking through me, not at me, as if she were evaluating my worth with each passing moment. But for Sophia's sake, my wife and the love of my life, I tried to push those feelings aside. Sophia and Emma had been inseparable since college, their bond forged through late-night study sessions, heartbreaks, and endless laughter. So, when Emma started dropping by our house unannounced or inviting herself to our date nights, I chalked it up to their closeness. Sophia adored her, and I wanted to be supportive. But things started shifting after Sophia and I celebrated our first anniversary. Emma's comments, once harmless, turned pointed. Sophia used to say she'd never marry someone so cautious, Emma said one evening, sipping wine in our living room. Her eyes flicked toward me with a smirk. I laughed it off, but her words lingered. Was she trying to undermine me? The little digs became more frequent. Sophia used to be so spontaneous before you came along, she'd say. Or, remember when you said you'd travel the world before settling down, Soph? Guess those dreams changed, huh? Sophia, ever kind and patient, brushed off these comments as jokes. But I couldn't help feeling that Emma was planting seeds of doubt. Things escalated one Friday evening. Sophia and I had planned a quiet night in, our favorite. But Emma showed up at the door with takeout and a bottle of wine. I figured you'd need rescuing from your Netflix and chill routine, she joked, breezing past me into the house. Sophia welcomed her warmly, as always. I forced a smile, but my patience was wearing thin. That night, as Emma monopolized Sophia's attention, I decided I needed to address it. But before I could, Emma made her move. The next morning, while Sophia was out running errands, Emma cornered me in the kitchen. "You're not good enough for her," she said, her voice low but firm. I froze, gripping my coffee mug tightly. "She's outgrown you," Emma continued. "Sophia's meant for someone who challenges her, excites her, not someone who plays it safe." The audacity left me speechless. But before I could respond, she added, "If you really loved her, you'd let her go." The rage boiled inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Emma," I said, my voice steady, "I know you care about Sophia. But you don't get to decide what's best for her. We're happy. And if you can't see that, maybe you don't know her as well as you think." Emma's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. She grabbed her bag and left without another word. I wrestled with whether to tell Sophia, not wanting to strain their friendship. But that evening, when Emma called to invite Sophia out without me, I decided I couldn't stay silent. "Soph, we need to talk," I said, sitting her down. As I recounted my conversation with Emma, her face shifted from disbelief to anger. "She said that?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, bracing for her reaction. "I can't believe she'd do that," Sophia said. "Emma's always been protective, but this is too far." The following day, Sophia confronted Emma. Their conversation was private, but the fallout was clear. Emma stopped coming around, her texts and calls dwindling to nothing. Sophia and I mourned the loss of the friendship, but in its absence, our relationship flourished. Without Emma's constant interference, we grew closer, stronger. Months later, Emma reached out, apologizing for her actions. Sophia forgave her, but their bond was never the same. As for me, I learned an important lesson. Love can withstand even the most silent of sabotages when it's built on trust and honesty. Emma's apology seemed sincere on the surface, but something about it didn't sit right with me. She didn't just vanish after Sophia forgave her. She began popping up again. Less frequently, yes, but just enough to make her presence felt. This time, though, Sophia seemed to keep her at arm's length, as if part of her knew the damage Emma had tried to cause couldn't be undone. One evening, months after their fallout, Sophia and I were sorting through old photos for a scrapbook project. It was a cozy night, the kind that reminded me why I fell in love with her. We laughed over awkward college pictures, shared stories, and reminisced about how far we'd come. Then Sophia pulled out a photo of her and Emma. They were standing in front of a beach bonfire, arms slung around each other, grinning like they ruled the world. I used to think she'd be in my life forever, Sophia said softly. You still miss her, don't you? I asked gently. Sophia hesitated. A part of me does. She was there for me through so much, but I can't ignore what she did. It's hard to fully trust her now. I nodded, not wanting to push the conversation further, but it stayed with me. Deep down, I wished things had ended more cleanly. About 2 weeks later, Emma reached out to Sophia again, this time with an invitation to coffee. Sophia was hesitant but decided to go, wanting to find closure. When she returned, her expression was unreadable. How did it go? I asked. She said she wanted to explain everything, Sophia said, sitting across from me. And honestly, I wasn't ready for what she told me. Sophia leaned forward, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. Emma admitted she tried to sabotage our marriage because she was jealous. She said she felt like she was losing me, like our friendship was slipping away because of how close we'd become. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. She told me she thought if she could plant doubts in my mind about us, I'd lean on her more. She said it was selfish and wrong, but at the time, she thought she was protecting me. Protecting me from what, though? From being happy? Sophia's voice cracked, and I reached out to take her hand. She was crying, Jake, Sophia said, her eyes brimming with tears. I could see how much she regrets it, but I don't know if I can ever trust her the same way again. You don't have to decide now, I said softly. But whatever you choose, just know I'll support you. Sophia smiled weakly and squeezed my hand. For the next few months, Emma stayed in touch, but this time it was on Sophia's terms. Their interactions were polite but distant. I could tell Sophia was trying to rebuild some kind of relationship, but it wasn't the same as before. Then came the breaking point. One night, Sophia received a message from Emma. Long, rambling, and emotional. Emma confessed that she still felt like she was losing Sophia and couldn't handle seeing her so happy with me. She hasn't let it go, Sophia said, showing me the message. She still sees you as the reason our friendship changed. Sophia made the difficult decision to step back completely. She wrote Emma a heartfelt message, thanking her for their years of friendship, but explaining that the trust between them had been too damaged to repair. It wasn't easy for Sophia, and I knew she carried a quiet sadness about losing someone who had been such a big part of her life. But over time, that sadness gave way to peace. In the years that followed, Sophia and I grew stronger together. We learned to cherish the relationships that uplifted us and let go of the ones that drained us. And while Emma's absence was a reminder of the challenges we'd faced, it also underscored how much we had fought to protect what we had built. Sometimes, love isn't just about standing together during the good times. It's about standing firm against those who try to pull you apart, and knowing when to let go of the ones who can't let go of you. Life moved on, but Emma's shadow lingered in subtle ways. Her absence in Sophia's life felt like the ghost of a friendship that could never fully rest. Sophia occasionally mentioned her, fond memories and funny stories, but those moments became fewer as the months turned into years. Then one evening, out of the blue, Sophia received a message from a mutual friend. Hey, did you see Emma's new podcast? She mentioned you. Sophia and I exchanged a glance. Do I even want to know? She muttered, opening the link. The podcast was titled, Losing Your Best Friend to Marriage. We sat on the couch, listening in stunned silence as Emma recounted their friendship, painting herself as the victim. She spoke about feeling abandoned when Sophia got married, claiming I had isolated Sophia from her closest friends. Her voice wavered, heavy with emotion, as she described the loss of their bond. She's still doing this, Sophia said, shaking her head in disbelief, even after all this time. The worst part? The podcast gained traction. Comments flooded in, many sympathizing with Emma's story. Some even vilified me, without knowing a single thing about our lives. Should we respond? I asked cautiously, watching as Sophia scrolled through the comments. She sighed, leaning back against the couch. Number, it's not worth it. People who know us know the truth. But this is just sad. Still, the podcast stirred something in Sophia. Over the following weeks, she found herself replaying moments from her friendship with Emma, questioning what was real and what was manipulation. It was as if Emma's voice was once again creeping into the cracks of our life. One night, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, Sophia finally let it all out. "I feel guilty, Jake," she admitted, her voice heavy. "Guilty for letting it get this far. For not seeing who she really was sooner. For letting her hurt you. Hurt us." "You don't need to feel guilty," I said, wrapping an arm around her. "Emma made her choices. You've done nothing but try to move on and live your life." "But she's still out there, telling the world her version of the story," Sophia said, and part of me wonders if maybe I could have done more to stop it. I took her hands in mine, looking her in the eyes. "Sophia, you can't control what Emma does or says. What matters is what we know to be true. Our life, our love, it's real. No one can take that from us, not even Emma." Sophia nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You're right. I know you're right. I need to stop letting her live rent-free in my head." In the weeks that followed, Sophia took steps to reclaim her peace. She unfollowed Emma on all social media platforms, removed old photos from her phone, and even blocked mutual friends who stirred up drama. It was painful, but it was necessary. As for Emma, her podcast continued to gain popularity for a while before eventually fading into obscurity. People moved on, as they always do, and the noise around her story quieted. Years later, we heard through mutual friends that Emma had moved to a different city and started a family of her own. I'd like to say that brought Sophia some closure, but the truth was she'd already made peace with it long before. Our lives were full of new memories, vacations, celebrations, quiet nights at home. And through it all, we held on to the lessons we'd learned. That love isn't just about the good times, but about weathering the storms together. That some people are meant to be part of your story, but not the whole book. One night, as we celebrated our 5th anniversary, Sophia raised her glass with a smile. "To us," she said. "To the life we've built, the battles we've fought, and the love we've protected." "To us," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. And in that moment, I realized Emma may have tried to tear us apart, but all she'd really done was remind us how strong we truly were. A few more years passed, and Sophia and I settled into a life of quiet contentment. Emma had become a distant memory, until the day she wasn't. It started with a phone call. I was in the middle of fixing a leaky faucet when Sophia walked into the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear, her face pale. "Emma?" she said, her voice tinged with shock. I froze, my wrench slipping from my fingers. I could hear the faint hum of a voice on the other end, but couldn't make out the words. Sophia's eyes darted to mine, and she gave me a look that said, "I don't know what's happening either." "Wait, slow down," Sophia said, sitting down at the kitchen table. "What do you mean you need my help?" She listened intently, her face shifting from confusion to concern. "Okay, let me think about it. I'll call you back." When she hung up, she stared at her phone for a moment before meeting my gaze. "She's in trouble," Sophia said. I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of trouble?" "She didn't give me a lot of details," Sophia said, running a hand through her hair. But apparently her podcast alienated a lot of people in her life. Some of the things she said about me and us made their way back to her family and friends. She's been struggling ever since. Now she's asking for my help, saying she wants to fix things, to apologize in person. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "And how do you feel about that?" Sophia hesitated, biting her lip. Part of me feels like I should help her. I don't want to kick someone when they're down. But the other part of me, I don't know if I can trust her. What if this is another way to pull me back into her drama? "I think you already know the answer," I said gently. "But whatever you decide, I'll support you." Sophia mulled it over for a few days before finally deciding to meet Emma. She insisted on meeting in a public place, a neutral ground. The day of the meeting, Sophia was nervous, and I couldn't blame her. As she left, I told her to call me if she needed anything, though part of me wished I could be there to see how it played out. Hours later, Sophia returned, her face a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "How did it go?" I asked, pouring her a glass of water. "It was intense," she admitted, taking a sip. She broke down the moment she saw me. She said she'd hit rock bottom and realized how toxic she'd been. She admitted that she used to envy our relationship, that she resented you because she wanted what we had. And when she couldn't have it, she lashed out in the worst ways possible. I listened quietly, unsure what to say. "She said she's been going to therapy," Sophia continued. "She's trying to fix herself. And she begged for my forgiveness, not to be best friends again, but just to let go of the anger between us." "Do you believe her?" I asked. Sophia sighed, staring down at her hands. "I think I do. She seemed different, vulnerable in a way I've never seen before. But even if I forgive her, I don't think I can let her back into my life. Not fully." "That's okay," I said. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You can wish her well without reopening old wounds. Sophia smiled faintly. "Yeah, that's what I told her. I said I forgive her, but I need to protect the life we've built. And she said she understood, that she's not expecting anything more." In the weeks that followed, Sophia seemed lighter, as if a weight she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying had finally been lifted. Emma sent her one last message, a heartfelt thank you for the forgiveness, and then disappeared from our lives again. This time, it felt final. Years later, as we sat together watching our daughter play in the backyard, Sophia leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever think about Emma?" she asked suddenly. "Not really," I admitted. "Do you?" "Sometimes," she said. "I wonder if she ever found her peace." I wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "All that matters is that we found ours." Sophia smiled, her gaze soft as she watched our daughter laugh and run through the grass. In the end, Emma's attempts to ruin our marriage had only strengthened it. And while she was a part of our story, she was no longer the center of it. We had written our own ending, a happy one. Years passed. Sophia and I grew into a rhythm that felt effortless, a dance perfected through time, trust, and love. We moved to a bigger house in a quieter neighborhood, started traveling with our daughter, Emily, and began laying down the roots for the kind of life we'd dreamed of. Emma was little more than a memory now, a chapter we had closed. Or so we thought. One sunny Saturday, as we packed up the car for a day at the park, Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. "It's Emma," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart sank. "What does she want?" "She says she's in town, and she'd like to see us. Both of us." I put down the picnic basket and looked at her. "What do you think?" Sophia stared at the message, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't know. It's been so long. I thought we were done with this." "You don't owe her anything," I said carefully. "But if it's something you feel you need to do, I'll be there with you." She thought for a moment before nodding. "Okay, let's meet her. But just this once." We agreed on a neutral spot, a quiet cafe downtown. As we sat at a corner table waiting, my stomach churned. I didn't know what to expect. Emma walked in a few minutes later. She looked different. Older, certainly, but there was something else. A softness, a humility in the way she carried herself. She spotted us and hesitated before approaching, as if unsure she'd be welcome. "Hi," she said, her voice tentative. "Hi, Emma," Sophia replied, her tone neutral. We exchanged polite greetings, and Emma sat down. For a moment, there was only the clink of coffee cups and the hum of conversation from other tables. Then Emma took a deep breath. "I know this is unexpected," she began, but I wanted to see you both because I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth. Sophia and I exchanged a glance, wary but curious. Emma clasped her hands on the table, her knuckles white. Back then, when I tried to come between you two, I wasn't just jealous. I was angry. Angry at myself, at my life, at everything. I saw what you had, this love, this connection, and it reminded me of everything I didn't have. I thought if I could tear you apart, maybe I wouldn't feel so alone. Her voice cracked and she looked down, swallowing hard. But it didn't work, and it only made me feel worse about myself. I've spent years in therapy trying to untangle the mess I made, not just with you, but with so many people in my life. And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to thank you for giving me the chance to heal. That day, when you met me and forgave me, it changed everything. Sophia's face softened, but she didn't speak. I could tell she was processing. Emma continued, her gaze flicking between us. I'm not here to ask for anything. I don't expect us to be friends again. I needed you to know that I'm truly sorry, and that I hope you're happy, because you deserve to be. There was a long pause. Finally, Sophia reached out, placing a hand on Emma's. I appreciate you saying that, she said quietly. I really do. And I hope you found peace too. Emma nodded, her eyes glistening. I'm getting there. We talked a little more about her life, her work, and how she was trying to rebuild. It was strange sitting across from someone who had once tried to destroy us, but there was a sincerity in Emma now that hadn't been there before. When we left the cafe, the air between us felt lighter. Sophia slipped her hand into mine as we walked to the car. How do you feel? I asked. Relieved, she said after a moment. I think I needed that. Not for her, but for me. I nodded, understanding. Emma never became a part of our lives again, but we occasionally heard about her through mutual acquaintances. She stayed on her path of self-improvement, eventually writing a book about her journey. In the acknowledgement section, she thanked 2 people who showed me the power of forgiveness, even when I didn't deserve it. Sophia and I didn't need her gratitude, but it felt good to know that even the messiest chapters of our lives could lead to something meaningful. In the end, Emma's story wasn't about us. It was about her learning to grow and let go. And ours? It was about standing together even when the odds were against us. As we sat in the park that afternoon watching Emily chase butterflies, Sophia leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, We made it. And we had.